welcome to another edition of the Financial Modeling Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Bernath. And joining me today is Iain Morrow. Iain is I want to call him the Chief Technology Officer of Gridlines, which is the Season 3 Financial Modeling Podcast sponsor. And what we're talking about today is something that's always fascinated me. And anybody that's ever done any sort of programming, whether that's in Python or whatever the case might be, will relate to this. And that's that if you're a data scientist or a data analyst, or if you've done some programming, there are libraries. And these libraries really enable you to use code that other people have created and even improve that code or work on that code and contribute to that community. And obviously that enables people to use already built building blocks of data science projects or programs, whatever the case might be, and really enables them not to start from scratch. Now, if you're a financial modeler, yes, there are financial modeling templates and you'll find them online, but there's really no one community of financial modelers that's contributing towards best practice financial modeling templates. And of course, most financial modelers, yes, they might use a template, but in general, they do recreate financial models from scratch. Now, joining me today is, as I said, Iain. And Iain, you guys have obviously realized that this is a problem in the financial modeling community, and you've been working on this.
Hi, Matthew. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Yes, that's right. So that's exactly what we're doing. We've, between I kind of dread to think how many years of financial modeling the people at Gridlines between us have done. Between Kenny and Danny and I, it must be 50 or 60 years. And we spend a lot of our time redoing stuff we've done before. And as you said, we just thought, surely there must be a way to avoid doing that. There must be a way to have libraries or components or modules, whatever you want to call them, stuff that comes up frequently in models that you can just call on. It's built to best practice. It's been checked by somebody. You're happy it does the right thing. Why doesn't that exist for financial modelers? So that's exactly what we're doing with our tool Openbox.
So there's a couple of challenges, as we know, that do exist in the financial modeling community that may also answer that question as to why that doesn't exist, right? So let's address the elephant in the room. So elephant in the room to me is the fact that you've got these massive global firms and they don't necessarily want to share their templates, right? They have their own standard of best practice. And whereas in the programming community, as you know, it's very about open source and about community engagement and communities contributing. In the financial modeling world, we haven't really seen that. It's been maybe a little bit more corporate, a little bit more cutthroat.
No, that's very true. And that is a challenge we faced. So I think there's a couple of answers to that. So first of all, we've been running a trial, a beta trial of the software over the last few months, and we've had some of the big four firms on that. So they're clearly sort of interested in this as well. And people we've spoken to there said, this is something that should be explored. And I think you're starting to see, if you look at some of the larger firms, they're starting to put out templates or snippets of models online. You can see parts of this is how you do a debt service cover ratio. So it's starting to open up. I think as you said, the software world is going that way too. And I think some of this stuff is just such common knowledge. How do you do straight line depreciation? That's not a trade secret. That's not. It's something you should do once, and you just have a component that does that. So you're right. That is a challenge, but I think there's a lot of stuff that is just out there in the public domain that you can use anyway. And I think the big firms are starting to realize that, openness is actually can be quite helpful for them too.
Absolutely. The next challenge in my mind, and this is maybe approaching it from a bit of a technical perspective, is that Excel is not really built that way. Excel's not built like Python where you can easily import libraries, and it's in fact built to do that. I mean, Excel's not really built to do that. So yes, you can download a template and you can copy and paste, and there's sometimes issues in referring to different cells, etc.
Yeah.
How did you get around that challenge?
So the way we got around that challenge is, again, going back to the sort of coding analogy, what we have, you design the model at a kind of higher level than Excel. So you say, this is the template I want. I want it to be a 3 financial statement model. I want it to have straight line depreciation. I want it to have 2 loans. And you bring in components for all those things and fit them together on the screen in a kind of visual way. And then you press a button and the software translates that to an Excel model. kind of like a compiler. So if you're using Python, then you're writing in Python, but actually the machine just knows ones and zeros, and there's a program that translates one to the other. So that's what we've done. We've said, you design the model at a level which is much closer to the business problem, and then the software just writes the formulas into Excel, and then so it does that's that step for you.
That's fascinating. And I mean, really taking Excel into the next phase, next revolution. And as we know, Excel is now even being used for data analytics. And I've always said that I think that Excel is a fantastic data analytics tool as well. And certainly, what you're talking about can be very easily applied in the data analytics world, whether it's bringing in a k-means clustering model into Excel or naive Bayes model, whatever the case might be. One of the other challenges, I guess, in financial modeling is that people sometimes do have different ways of doing different things, whether it's calculating a debt service coverage ratio or even a DSRA or an LLCR. And people do have sort of different ideas. Is the idea behind what you've created a community for everybody to contribute their ideas and somebody to choose what suits them best, or how are you approaching that?
Yeah, totally. It's totally a community idea. And, I think this is actually the biggest challenge for me. A lot of financial modelers classically are self-taught, or maybe they've been in one or two training courses, and so they develop their own style and their, as you say, their own way of doing things. So we've very much not taken the approach that we Gridlines know the best way to do different calculations, and we're going to tell you the right way to do it, and you do it our way. We said this is one of the reasons we called it Openbox, is it's going to be all community based. It's going to be people will provide some components for standard stuff, but A, they're easy to modify. B, you can create your own. You just cut and paste from Excel, and it'll take the Excel and translate it into a component for you, and then you save that for future. And it's designed very much to be, this is a tool that will help you, but we're not trying to lay down the law about how to calculate stuff, because A, people don't like that, and B, we might be wrong, or we might not be appropriate for your situation.
And C, if I'm dialing in from or if I'm using Openbox, I guess from a project sponsor, I might want to include all my cash balances and my debt service coverage ratio. So I want that model. Whereas
Right.
if I'm phoning from an investment bank, I'm saying whoa, I want the way more conservative DSCR.
Yeah, exactly. So you can have do it yourself, design it yourself, bring it in from other people, share it with your colleagues. We've deliberately made it. I talked about about you designing an Openbox and translating to Excel. We've deliberately made it able to go the other way as well. So if you've got a model sitting on your computer which has the calculation you want in it, take that calculation, put it into Openbox, and then you can share it with everyone.
If I use again the analogy to the data science and data analytics community, in those communities, we have things such as GitHub, we've got Stack Overflow, where really members can come together, answer each other's questions, and also contribute code that other people can share. How are you doing that with Openbox?
So we will, at the moment, we are giving just people flexibility to say, here's a location for my library of components, and that library could be on your computer or it could be in your corporate network. So it's sharing within a firm. Our vision is for a kind of GitHub or some kind of a code library tool where you can say people can communicate, can contribute to that. People can comment and stuff. You can have different versions. You can have revisions. You can see how stuff has been developed over time. And we're thinking in terms of, so that's a sort of open version. We are also thinking that some people might want to create components for commercial sale. So they might want to charge for that. And we're thinking about a kind of App Store or Windows, Microsoft Store model for that. So people will be able to offer if you are the world's expert on, I don't know, offshore wind farms, and you want to offer a component on, or solar plus storage, and you want to offer a component that shows how to calculate the revenue for these projects, and it's you're the guy, you're the go-to guy in the world for that. Fine, create a component for it, put it on our Openbox store, and charge some money for it.
My final question to you is this, Ian, and I think this is something that, in fact, many in the data science and data analytics community are still struggling with, but has been largely answered. And that's that, as we know, Gridlines is a financial modeling consultancy firm, and you build
Yes.
financial models for your clients. So the question, I might have as a client is say, well, hang on a second, if you're just releasing all of this for free and you're making it all available, then why don't I just build my own financial model? And then do I even need Gridlines anymore?
Yeah. Well, so I think so one of the other projects I'm involved in is something called Full Stack Modeler, which is about the different tools that you might use for modeling. And to me, there's this kind of skill of being a modeler, of being able to say, okay, here's a simple way to represent this situation or this problem. Now, what tool do I use to code it? So I think what I don't think our core skill at Gridlines is, what the intricacies of each Excel function. I don't think that's our skill. Our skill is understanding transactions and able to create a model from them. And whether that is built natively in Excel from scratch, whether we write it in Python or C# or whatever, or R or R, it's a different. It's still a model, and that's our skill is translating a situation to a model. I think the other thing is that people have been. This is the way the world is going, or we see ourselves very much in the kind of automation and efficiency space. I think if not us, then somebody else. I often people said to me often, this isn't a new idea. And I said, yeah, it's not a new idea. It's totally not a new idea. Nobody claimed it's a new idea. And in fact, it's an idea that everybody has said for years should exist. So we're going to make it exist now. If we didn't do it, somebody else would. So we might as well do it.
That's amazing. And it's certainly a massive contribution towards the financial modeling community globally and to people that want to learn. It's such an amazing learning tool to be able to download these components and see how they're modeled and totally. How they're built and to do so, with really best practice global models. Iain, you mentioned Full Stack Modeler. So as we know, Full Stack Modeler is the season 4 financial modeling podcast sponsor. Okay. You spoke about some of the other tools and technologies. So obviously, there's not just Excel that one can build financial models in. What do you think is going to be the next tool? So there's quite a few contenders out there. As we know, there's R, there's Python, there's other tools. What do you think is going to be the next tool that people are going to move towards building financial models in?
That's a really interesting question. I think the next tool is going to be one that lets people use different tools for different parts of the model. So one of the things I'm seeing now, there's native Excel, there's R, there's Power BI, and those all have pluses and minuses, pros and cons for different parts of your model. But they don't always talk nicely to each other. And also, if I'm writing something in R, using R, I can't show that to my colleague who only knows Excel. So, but I'd like to. So I think one of the next tool for me, and I think I very much see myself in the model translation business, is one that allows people to link different models built on different tools together and to move from one to the other. So if I write, one of the next directions for me for Openbox is to say, okay, you've got this model. I don't want it in Excel, actually. I'd like it in F#, please. And then there it is in F# or Python or whatever. And it's the same model, but it's just optimized for different purpose.
Absolutely. That would be amazing. And that will really enable cross-skill modelers to move between Python and Excel, but use these best of breed components. Fascinating, Iain. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for this amazing contribution towards the financial modeling community. I'll certainly be a user and hopefully a contributor towards this tool set to really help financial modelers around the world.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on. And it's a great podcast. I'm a regular listener. It's kind of a nice privilege to be here.